So now I'm testing.
Oh, okay.
So the first if those spots are so you just go back and pick
As we get ready to start, just a couple housekeeping things. You see there's an exit right here. That one I think goes right outside if we would need it, which we hope we do not. And the rest of
Can't hear you.
Let me try that again. So, this exit here goes right outside. So if we would need it, which we hope we do not, it is right there. And if you go out these doors to the left, you can find restrooms. If you saw the one on the way in, that one is not open, so you need to use this one. There's also a small adult bathroom to the right. If you use that one, please keep the door propped open because it's staff and it's usually locked. But there's a whole bank of restrooms on the left. So that's our housekeeping details. I think we're a minute. I don't know. This says 6:56, but somebody said it was 7 already.
It's 6:57.
Okay, so we'll give it a couple more minutes, just make sure everybody's set, but I thought I'd just let you know
Turn
that.
on the volume, you can.
Single one, if you use that one, keep the door propped open unless you want to be the last person to use it tonight. Like if you're done, keep the door propped open and it will lock. So we'll wait a couple more minutes, because it's not quite 7, and then we'll get started. All right, I'm getting some high signs here that it's really 7 o'clock. School clocks are a little slow, maybe. So I am Barb Hedges-Gadel. I am the president of the local League of Women Voters. That's the Sussex County, League of Women Voters of Sussex County, Delaware. We would like to welcome you to this nonpartisan candidate forum for State House Representative District 20. The League of Women Voters is an organization that encourages informed and active participation in government and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We take action on public policy positions established through member agreement. We are political, but we are nonpartisan. We do not support or oppose any political party candidate. During the last general election, some of you may know, the Sussex County League held 5 forums in 6 weeks. We are gearing up to at least match that for the 2026 midterms. And we are doing a training for people to help with the forums in September, because we actually have to start scheduling venues soon in the new year. If you'd like to become a part of our important work, please stop at the information desk or look at our website, LWV, Sussex County, Delaware. At this time, please turn off your cell phones. No photos or recordings are allowed unless expressly authorized by the League, except for members of the press. I will now turn our forum over to our moderator, Dr. Marlene Saunders. In 2025, Dr. Saunders was elected to the Board of Directors for the League of Women Voters Delaware, which is the state league, and to the Board of Directors for the League of Women Voters of Sussex County. She serves as co-chair of LWV, that's League of Women Voters, Sussex County, Delaware. Yes, there is another county of Sussex elsewhere. It's a little bit of a long name. She also serves as chair of a local social policy committee. Marlene. Thank you. Good evening. I would like to welcome you all to the Candidates Forum for those seeking election to State House Representative District 20. The forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Sussex County. I am Dr. Marlene Saunders, who will be your moderator this evening. I prefer to be called Marlene. We thank Cape Henlopen Local School District for their cooperation in arranging this forum at this facility this evening. We also thank ASL Connections for providing sign language interpretation. We will begin with a pledge of allegiance. Please remove your hat and stand if you are able. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I am requesting that you take a moment to turn off all cell phones and other devices. As indicated earlier, no photos or recordings of this event are allowed unless expressly authorized by the League of Women Voters. The only exception to this rule is for members of the press. I will begin with several introductions. First of all, our candidates, Ms. Alonna Berry and Dr. Nikki Miller. also like to introduce Lisa Malone, who is the Vice President of the League of Women Voters, Sussex County, Delaware, and is also coordinator of this forum for the League of Women Voters for Sussex County, Delaware. Members of the League of Women Voters who were in attendance and helping in various capacities this evening, please stand and be recognized. I would like to announce that campaign material provided by the candidates is available on the table outside of the auditorium. You are welcome to take this material should you wish to do so. Membership information regarding the League of Women Voters is also available. I would like now to state the purpose of the forum as determined by the League, and I quote, "This forum is a nonpartisan event moderated by the League of Women Voters of Sussex County, an organization that encourages informed and active participation in government and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We take action on public policy positions established through member agreement. We are political, but we do not support or oppose any political party candidate," unquote. I would like to thank the members of the audience for their attendance this evening. It is the expectation that rules of common courtesy and mutual respect will be observed during this forum. We are requesting that you remain silent and express your opinions at the ballot box when you vote on Election Day, which is Tuesday, August 5, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Next. These are the procedures which we will follow this evening. Questions have been received from audience members written on index cards which you received. You are invited to continue to develop questions as the evening proceeds. League members will be available to collect your questions. Our panel of screeners reviews questions for duplication and appropriateness. Questions should be relevant to the position for which the candidates are vying. We will present as many questions as possible during the time period allowed for questions this evening. Should your particular question not be asked due to time constraints, please contact the candidates so that they can provide a response to your question. Candidates have been determined in order for opening remarks by a coin toss earlier this evening. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening remarks. The question period will then follow. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to a question. The only exception to this procedure will be if a question is directed to a specific candidate. If this should occur, the candidate to whom the question is directed will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidate will have 1 minute to make remarks regarding that response if they choose to do so. We ask that candidates specifically address the questions that are asked. I would like to introduce our timekeepers who are charged with keeping me and the candidates on track this evening. The timekeeper will display a green card indicating that the timing process has begun, then a yellow card indicating that 30 seconds remain for responding to the question, and then the red card indicating that time has expired. At that point, the candidate can finish her sentence quickly or risk being interrupted by me. At the conclusion of the questioning period, candidates will have 3 minutes for closing remarks. The order of closing remarks will be the reverse order of the order of closing remarks will be the reverse of the order selected for opening remarks. So now we can begin. According to the toss, Ms. Berry will go first.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alonna Berry, and I am excited to be the candidate running for District 20 here in Milton and Lewis. I am running because I'm a mother. I'm a mother of two little ones, and I'm running because this is the community that I've loved, and I want to make sure that this community continues to love my kids, and that my kids want to stay and raise their families here. I'm running because I'm a multi-generational Sussex County, and I can trace my roots back multiple generations here. And this community matters to me. I'm not running just to sit in a seat. I'm running because I want to get things done for this community here. I'm running because I care about our environment. I want to make sure that my kids have a safe place to grow up, and that they have clean air and clean energy for their future. I'm running because I care about our K-12 system. I know that we've been operating on a formula that's been outdated for many years. And it's not providing the kinds of supports that our students need. It's not providing the kinds of supports that our teachers and administrators need. And I'm excited to jump in and be able to do that work and redesign the system. I'm running because I'm a mom of two little ones under 3, and I myself have struggled to find childcare in this area. Sussex County is a childcare desert. For many families like myself, it takes months, years to be able to find a seat for your child. And so for lots of folks, they're having to decide between, can I work or can I take care of my family? Those aren't the choices that I think our families should have to make. Families should be able to do both, and should be able to know that there's a safe place for their kids to be while they're working. I'm running because our healthcare system can't keep up with the amount of growth that's happening in our communities right now. We have a shortage of doctors. We have a shortage of specialists and nurses. I myself and my husband and others have experienced the wait time when you call to get an appointment. Particularly as a mother of little ones, sometimes you can't wait. They need care immediately. And we have to be able to keep up with the growth that's happening here in our community. And there's lots of ways in which we can do that. And lastly, I'm running because this is the community that raised me. This is the community that I want to be a better place for our families, for our students, and for everyone. And so I'm running because I care. I'm running because I feel like I have the experience that's needed to be able to be ready day one, sitting in Dover. We're going to be facing, our state's going to be facing the biggest budget cuts. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight. So I am running. My name is Dr. Nikki Miller, by the way. I am a proud mom of an 18-year-old who just graduated from King Penn High School, and the daughter of 2 wonderful parents who are here this evening. I come to you with over 2 decades of public education experience. I was a classroom teacher, middle school, and then assistant instructional coach, assistant principal, and now district leader. I have proven leadership, driven Cape Henlopen through COVID, which was quite an experience, ensuring that we opened the doors for students to be able to get back in the building, making sure that we had students fed, that we met their needs, got them the Wi-Fi that they needed, all of those things. And my leadership continues now in a district role with a different school district. Over the past year, I've been campaigning, you might recognize me, and doing all the door knocking that I've been doing and going to community events. I've learned so much. While my experience and my expertise is education, I have met people from all over this wonderful area where we live, and I've learned from each and every one of them. And throughout all of this, there's been commonalities of the issues that we all are experiencing. One, traffic. That could be its own campaign. Not just traffic, but the safety of all of us when we're on the roads. Route 1 is more like an interstate, and the back roads are more like highways. And so how do we ensure that we're safe? People are coming here, they're not going to stop moving here. So what can we do to ensure that the infrastructure holds up to the growth that is happening so that we continue to be safe? Infrastructure is not just roads. Infrastructure is also access to health care. As Ms. Berry mentioned, whether you are a retiree and you need specialty care, or you are a young parent having a child who needs pediatrics, it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to be waiting a while, and that's unacceptable. and also constituent service. I have had a professional role my entire career that I give back to people, whether it's a parent, a community member, a student, anyone within 24 hours. That is important. We have been lacking that, unfortunately. We have not had that constituent service, and I am ready and willing to put in the work, put boots on the ground and do that. Anyone who's seen my leadership knows I'm not too good to do anything. I will work alongside every single person. When the students are moving into their classrooms after they ate lunch, I'm the one that's helping clean the tables, pushing the trash can around, because I'm never going to do something, ask somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. I promise you that I will not just show up. I will not just say I'm going to do something. I'm going to do the work, and I'm going to be in the community like I have been. I never stopped campaigning. I continued because I knew I was going to run again in 2026, and it was important for me to remain visible and continue to learn. So that is what I want to do. Thank you.
Give me a minute to put this microphone back free. Microphone and cards. Those sounds a little cumbersome. Okay, in as much as Ms. Berry went first.
We can't hear you. Speak into the microphone.
In as much as Ms. Berry presented first, the first question will go to Dr. Miller. This is a question pertaining to political experience. The question is, how does your experience allow you to be able to hit the ground running on day one?
Number one, I've been campaigning for over a year, so I've built those connections. Last night at an event, we had over 150 attendees, so that is certainly there. I have those connections. Number two, you may not understand this, but as an administrator, you have 7 people that vote on whether or not you have a job every day. And I am used to having the constituents of the students, 2,000 students, 250 staff members, and then a lot of parents to keep happy. And that happens year after year. So while I have not been in the political realm, I've certainly been within politics in our community. And I think that's the most important, because what we really need is we need somebody who's going to have a voice for us, that is to have that experience, that's lived in this, to be able to go to Dover and advocate. All too much, and especially, we are bringing in a tremendous amount of money in this county that is spread throughout the state, and yet we have to beg, borrow, and steal to get roads in Milton fixed, to be able to get sidewalks fixed. We're promised one thing, we get another, and we need that. So my experience of being a leader in the district, in the community, will certainly have me ready for politics. And I would like to add too, sometimes it's great to have somebody who doesn't have all the ins in politics, because I owe no one anything. So I definitely am ready.
We would like to answer a lot of questions, and we would ask that you please do not applaud after each speaker. Thank you.
Ms. Berry has asked me to repeat the question. How does your experience allow you to be able to hit the ground running on day one?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Being in Dover and being a legislator is really complicated. It requires knowledge of any bill that comes across your desk. My knowledge and expertise, both having a background in education, as a teacher, as an instructional coach, as a person who founded a school in Sussex County, but I also have the experience of what it means to bring community together. During COVID, I actually transitioned from the education world because I was doing community work. And when COVID hit, it was my job to go out into Kent and Sussex County and communicate what the needs were, how folks should be able to respond. If you remember in the beginning, the rules changed every single day. And we needed someone who could go out and make sure that communities understood what was happening. There were outbreaks happening in chicken plants. There were outbreaks happening in different sub-communities across the state. And it was that work that led me into policy work. And from there, I had the opportunity to work in our former governor's office as a policy advisor around health, education, the children's department, and housing. Those are the top issues that I hear as we're knocking on doors. And so I'm ready to go to Dover day one because I have the experience. I understand the complexity of what it requires to both write policy and understand that policy requires budget. And that you have to be able to negotiate both in order to get things through in Dover. So I'm ready, I'm willing to do that on behalf of this district and be the voice for this district in Dover. Thank you.
Question 2. Ms. Berry. Sussex County often feels overshadowed by Newcastle County and state decisions. How can your experience help you in advocating for Sussex County's interests against competing regional priorities? And how would you ensure District 20's voice is heard?
Great, thanks for the question. Advocating on behalf of Sussex County and on behalf of this district is what I've done my entire career. In some ways, maybe to the point where I've gotten the reputation for being the person that's always raising their hand and saying, what about Sussex County? How do we make sure we bring those resources here? When we talk about housing and infrastructure, what happens here is very different than what's happening in Newcastle County. It's very different than what's happening in Kent County. In fact, even with the land assessment, the impact of how that is happening is very different in Newcastle than the rates that are happening down here. We have to make sure that we have a voice at the table. We have to make sure that we have someone in Dover who's able to speak on behalf of District 20. And that will require deep constituent relationships. That will require making sure that we have opportunities for community members to be able to voice their opinions. Making sure that if afforded this opportunity that I'm available, that I'm listening, that I'm ready to work on behalf of this community because our voice is needed. We can't not have a voice in Dover, and that's why I'm running, because it's critical that we know what we need and that we're able to bring the resources we need back to this community in particular. Budget is the key challenge anytime you're talking about what's happening in Legislative Hall. And often we've been overlooked around additional dollars for housing, additional dollars for roads, additional dollars for our school systems. I plan to go to Dover and be the voice on behalf of this district and make sure that those dollars get back here to this community because we are just as valuable as everyone else in the state. Thank you.
Dr. Miller has asked me to repeat the question. Sussex County often feels overshadowed by Newcastle County and state decisions. How can your experience help you in advocating for Sussex County's interests against competing regional priorities? And how would you ensure District 20's voice is heard?
Thank you very much. One of the biggest things that we're lacking right now is people coming together in the same room to have the conversations that are hard to have. And that is something that I have a lot of experience doing. When a student has made a mistake in the community and you got to have a conversation with their parents of whether or not they're going to remain in the building and what you're going to do, that's not an easy conversation to have. I have built the relationships already over the past year with the council members and county council, with current planning and zoning, with current legislators. And so we have to be able to work across the aisle to get things done. And that's what's lacking right now. I have the experience of working with people to be able to bring them together. We are having a furniture change over here to my right. Sorry about that. But we need to make sure that we bring in those resources, that those connections. We have 3 new members on county council that are excited and ready to do the work, and I'm ready to work alongside them to get the work done. So, and then we have other opportunities. My mentor, Marlene Lopez, who's my campaign manager, he has got so many resources that I'm able to bring on and utilize as he mentors me through this process and in the future. Steve Smith, who was a great voice for us here in District 20, did a wonderful job spending time with me, teaching me what he learned. It all comes down, everything comes down to 2 things. It doesn't matter what it is in life. It's time and it's money. Things are expensive, we know that. We have to ensure that you not only get the things that you need, but that you can put food on the table. And we gotta make sure that the taxes, that the money that we are creating here in Sussex County is coming back here. There's no reason why we are not able to get the things that we need, especially in the town of Milton. I see that Milton has definitely, over time, been ignored. And we need to be able to bring these resources because we're doing nothing but growing. And we want to ensure that when people move here, that we keep this place as beautiful that it is now. Thank you.
Now sit down.
Well, now that we got that situated.
State representatives serve on committees like appropriations or education. What specific committee would you seek to join, and how would your past experience prepare you to recommend, implement policy in that committee's domain?
Thank you. There are many committees that I would love to be a part of, but it would be absurd if I was not part of the education committee. When elected, I will have the most certifications, credentials, and experience than any other person that is sitting in there right now. I am a district leader. I understand school budgets because I run the school budget. I understand what kids need to learn because I'm in classrooms every day. As a classroom teacher, I showed up every day, prepared, ready to teach my students. As an administrator, I came prepared, ready to support my staff, my students, and my families. And I do the same as a district administrator every single day. We are about to have a special session where the budget of education is going to be reworked. It would be ridiculous if I was not a part of that. I'm very fiscally responsible. I live a very simple life. I've always stood by that I want to be able to, if I were to go back in the classroom, to be able to afford the way that I live. I have grown up that way. I've grown up understanding fiscal responsibility, and we need to do a better job of that in Dover. It's not that we need to raise taxes. We don't need to raise taxes. We need to do a better job of using our school budget, or our budget in Delaware. Schools have the money they need. They need to be able to have the flexibility to use it as they see fit. There's too much red tape and too many mandates that are coming on schools. We talk about mandates time after time after time. The state is telling us mandates that we have to have in our schools. Start kind of fuel on our buses. Now we got to hire bus drivers. We can't use contractors. We have to have mental health, all these things that come with no money. And when we do that, we take away from what the kids are getting in the classroom. And at the end of the day, we need to make sure that our students are reading in 3rd grade. That is the grade that they need to be proficient in literacy. And we have to ensure that if we want to continue to have good schools, good community, we have to be able to do that. So I would 100% want to be on the education committee and anything else that I would be welcome to.
Thank you. If afforded the opportunity to go to Dover, the committees that I would want to be on are health, education, and housing. Every time we've knocked on doors, those are the 3 issues that people in this district say matter to them. And so it is critical that we have a voice on those committees. I sat on the Education Compensation Commission. The biggest issue in education right now is how we fund our schools. And I don't disagree that there is funding available to our schools and we may not be using it in the right way. But there was a report that came out last year by AIR, it's a national research firm, that said that Delaware schools are underfunded by $600 million. And that's connected to our school funding formula. It's outdated. We've been playing catch up in Delaware for a really long time. We put Band-Aids on a system that doesn't work anymore. Our school funding system doesn't incorporate the needs of our students and our families. It doesn't include supports for multilingual learners. It doesn't include supports, wraparound service supports like speech pathology and other needs. Those should be built into the formula because those are the baseline needs that our students need. I would want to sit on the health committee because we've already aligned that health is one of the biggest issues facing our district, that we have to think creatively about how we incentivize folks to come here, how we keep our doctors and nurses here so that we can get the health care that we need. And housing and infrastructure is the biggest issue that I hear about consistently. And being on that committee is where we're going to make the decisions about how the funding comes to this district. And so those are the 3 committees that I would want to sit on.
What is your experience drafting policy?
Thank you for the question. Over my time in the governor's office, I had firsthand experience on what it means to draft policy, review policy, and amend policy from start to finish. It requires a deep understanding of how to work with our state agencies, how to work with constituents who might have differing opinions about a particular bill, how to understand how the budget works through the Joint Finance Committee, and so that we're not passing legislation that's unfunded, and how to make sure that it gets through the vote in the committee, it gets through the vote on the floor, and ultimately still has to go to the governor's desk to be signed. And so from the very beginning, you have to start and understand the entire process that a piece of policy will go through. And oftentimes, it requires many edits to get it to a place where folks can feel like this is the right policy for them. So I have extensive experience doing that work. I have extensive experience engaging stakeholders across the table, across the aisle, to make sure that we can find consensus on a particular bill and issue. I have extensive experience making sure that we're including the fiscal note and matching that to the budget line, and that it's not just for that particular next fiscal year, that we're thinking about the budget long term. There are many pieces of legislation that are only funded for 1 year, and then what happens, right? That falls back on our state to be able to figure that out. And so I'm excited to bring that experience that I've had in my career to Dover on behalf of this district. Thank you.
No, I'm good. I just think last time I felt like there was something over here to say. My experience in writing a policy is actually board school policy. So a lot of policies that run the schools they're in the handbook, right? They're in board policy. You would be surprised how often you have to go through and revise those because of all of the changes. One recently that I did while I was still at Cape was we were changing the policy on the grading system. Talk about a sensitive topic. Teachers take their grades very seriously, and parents take GPAs very seriously. So it was a full year process to be able to do that. One of the biggest things when looking at any policy, whether it's in government, local government, or in the state government, is you have to ensure that you have the right people at the table. That you have the people who are not only knowledgeable in the topic, sometimes you need, not sometimes, you also need to include that person that just picks every single detail and tells you exactly what is wrong. Because you need that person. Sometimes they're not the easiest person to have a conversation with, but you need that because you need the perspective. The last thing I would ever want is to be surrounded by a bunch of yes men. We need people collectively taking their thoughts, their brains, and putting these together in order to formulate policy that is not only going to work, but is going to make people happy and support them where they are. Thank you.
Nonprofits play a key role in Sussex County social services. Nonprofits play a key role in Sussex County social services. What experience do you have partnering with nonprofits to deliver constituent services, and how would you develop these partnerships as a state representative?
A huge thing about being in a public school is partnering with nonprofits. I look at my friend over here and I think about all the work that we've done with Pathways to Success, right? Ensuring that you have the correct students in the program, ensuring that they are getting the supports that they need in the classroom, in the school, when they leave the classroom. I have a whole list of people that when I needed something for a kid, when I have a group I can go to. And it's important that we engage with those nonprofits because they're doing the work out there for the right reasons. Whether it's Boys and Girls Club, Food Bank, Pathways to Success, all of these things, Meals on Wheels, I actually want to do that when I retire. I want to go and be a Meals on Wheels driver because I had such a wonderful experience It's not even about the food. It's about checking in on elderly people and giving them somebody to say hi to. Are you doing okay? Do you have everything you need? And so all of these nonprofits that surround us are run and supported by people who want to do the same things I do, and that's care about others and be there for them.
Nonprofits are the lifeline to constituents, not just in this district, but across the state. Our legislature has a direct impact on how our nonprofits across the state receive funding. There's a process called grant and aid where our legislators are able to discuss the needs and bring the input from their district to Legislative Hall to make decisions about how to continue to support nonprofits in the area. One of the challenges that we're going to be facing coming into this next legislative session and future legislative sessions is going to be cuts to the budget, cuts to funding. We just saw it here with the food bank, who lost a substantial amount of funding in our state. And they had to go to the state legislature to figure out how the state could partner with them to make sure that Delawareans who need food were still able to receive food. That's just one example of what is going to happen over the coming years as some of the cuts come from the federal government to our state. And our budget is what our budget is. We can't suddenly print more money. And so we're gonna need a voice in Dover who can speak and fight on behalf of the needs of this district, to understand the unique nonprofits that exist in Sussex County and serve this community in particular. I've had tons of experience both working with nonprofits from the state level, but also in the work that I've done founding a school and with others. And we can't afford in this community to not have nonprofits. We need to make sure that the funding is sustainable, long-term, not year to year, and that nonprofits have the ability to be able to serve the community in the way that they deserve to be served.
Thank you. Ms. Berry. Working with the governor's office is critical for advancing District 20's priorities. How would you work with Governor Matt Myers' administration?
Yeah, that's a great question. The governor's office plays a critical role in partnership with the state legislature. There's nothing that goes through the state legislature that isn't once reviewed by the governor's office. There's no budget line that isn't done in partnership with the governor's office. Every policy goes through the different departments or cabinet secretaries for review and input by those individuals prior to or after it goes to committee or on the floor. So you have to work hand in hand with the governor's office. I've had the opportunity to work on that side. I understand how in-depth the relationships are and how critical it is to have the governor's office support and understanding on particular legislation. We've seen in this state where legislation passes through the legislature and it gets stopped at the governor's office. And that, in part, is because there weren't people working together from the beginning. And so any bill that I would write, any piece of legislation that I would co-sponsor or champion, I would make sure that the governor's office is in and understands the intent of that bill from the beginning. And I would make sure that we're checking in with state agencies, with cabinet secretaries, and with the governor's office every step of the way. Because it would be my job as legislator representing District 20 to make sure that the bill doesn't just get through committee, that it doesn't just get through the floor, that it gets to the governor's office and he signs the bill so that we can get the supports that we need here in this community.
Thank you.
Say it in the mic.
Could you repeat the question?
Working with the governor's office is critical for advancing District 20's priorities. How would you work with Governor Matt Myers' administration?
Well, one of the things that I would do is actually push back a little bit, because what has been happening in the governor's office hasn't been doing a very good job. We talk about state test scores, and we look at those things, and we look at our economy, and we continue, what is it, the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing and expect different results. We continue to do the same thing and we expect different results. So I believe that the governor needs somebody with a little bit more experience than him in the classroom and in leadership and education to be able to support his work, obviously in a very kind and supportive way. But we need people who are going to push back and not just settle for whatever that one individual says. And so having the conversations, being at the table, and advocating. You can advocate in a polite way. It is what we have to do because we have to make change. And if we continue to want to see us go down, well, then we gotta keep doing the same thing. But that's exactly why I'm running. I'm not a person that is going to just complain. I'm a person who is going to do. I don't want to work another 80 hours a week or whatever it is, but I'm willing to put in the work because that is what we need in the state. We need hardworking people who are not just going to talk about policy, but actually get it done and walk the walk.
Thank you. Dr. Miller.
I'm going to get this mentioned.
What is your position on Delaware being a sanctuary state/refuge?
So I go back to, I think we have to treat all people with kindness. That is not my decision if this has already been made. Therefore, what I would want to do is ensure that people are taken care of and treated like human beings. Because that's what we do. We don't want to ever treat somebody poorly because of their situation. It isn't. And if we are a sanctuary state, that has already been told to us. And so what we need to do is we need to support people where they are. There is no point in any life where we should ever treat somebody as if they are not a human. And so that is how I feel about that.
One of the things that I love about Delaware is that we have a reputation for standing up when others don't. We have a reputation for being the first in a lot of places. And just a couple of years ago, we were one of the only states who raised our hand and said, we want to help people, regardless of your situation, regardless of your background, regardless of where you came from. And that's a tough choice to make, and I'm proud to be a part of a state who's willing to make tough choices, because that's what this work requires. I agree wholeheartedly with Dr. Miller. We have to treat people with kindness. We have to treat people like our neighbors. And that's what being a sanctuary state means. It means that when folks come to us for help, that we're willing to say yes, that we're willing to step up and do the work. And I'm not saying that doesn't come with challenges. In fact, when we had folks coming into the state before, there were challenges in finding housing and food and budget related to that. And it took lots of people working across the aisle to figure out how we do that. But again, that's what makes Delaware a great state. That's what makes this community, because in fact, as some of those challenges were directly impacting Sussex County, a great place. It didn't matter what your background was. If I was able to pick up the phone and say, hey, we need help for this person, and countless time and time again, people said, yes, I'm willing to help. And that's what I love about this state. Thank you.
Don't sit down. Delaware's education system is 80 years old. Currently, the Public Education Funding Commission is currently producing recommendations. What should our school funding formula be, and what next steps should we be taking?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. I'm going to actually split it into two, because the work of the Public Education Compensation Committee was directly focused on compensating our educators, not just teachers, but the entire education system, including our school nurses, including our bus drivers, our paraprofessionals. And I had the opportunity to be a part of those conversations. And I would fully support fully funding the recommendations of the Public Education Compensation Commission. What I valued so much about that experience is that they designed a phased plan, right? Because the challenge with being able to just say we're going to raise salaries is that then that falls on our school districts, that falls on our employers who have to figure out how to make that work. And so what the Public Education Compensation Commission did was develop a plan that built a scale for teachers to get to a living wage, and a wage that respects their expertise and their background and their amount of experience and college degrees. It built a scale for paraprofessionals and other wraparound service providers in our schools to make sure that they were also getting the pay that they deserve. It took into account our bus drivers and everyone else who make our schools work. Separate to that is the conversation about our school funding formula, which is one of the most complex funding formulas in the United States. It is outdated 2 times my age, right? So we're operating in a funding formula that is not meeting the needs of our students and our teachers and our parents today. We have got to figure out how to completely restructure the way that we fund our schools and take into account, because we have a unit funding system, take into account that what our students need now is different than what they needed 80 years ago. Thank you.
I think I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Our school funding system is absolutely ridiculous. The way that this is formulated is based on what's called unit count. So for every pupil that's in the school, in the building, until September 30th, there's a 1-week window where they can count the students. And then from that, a student generates the funding based on if they are a typical student or if they are a special needs student. And then that's 3 different ways. If they're complex, so there's different funding that goes with all of that. And that to be said, then you also have the local portion that comes on that. It is complicated, ridiculous, and it's about time that it's looked at. That we have been failing our schools and our students and our teachers for a very long time. There is absolutely no reason why I should be able to drive. I would have, as a teacher, same exact credentials, and I can drive a little bit further and make $15,000 more doing the same job. We are hurting our most at-risk kids by paying the teachers less to teach them. And then you have the high turnovers because the teachers can drive a few more miles and make more money doing the same thing. If we truly want to close the achievement gap and improve what we are doing here in the state for education, we have to not only look at the funding system, we have to look at how providing equitable services to all of our Delaware kids. And that may not just speak for District 20, I'm speaking for when my drive across the county. We have to do better by kids, by the teachers, custodians, and even our bus drivers. Everyone needs better, and if we want to continue our state in a positive direction, we have to do better by our kids.
Thank you. Ms. Berry. Today, we suffer from a great political divide.
No.
Dr. Miller. Thank you. Let me change this. Thank you. Today, we suffer from a great political divide. Even if people have great ideas, they are ignored if you are from the other side of the aisle. What can you do to help mend this divide that is crippling our progress as a society?
I couldn't agree more with you on that, and it's really sad because all of us are a lot more alike than we are different, and it is important that we can sit down in a room, have a conversation, and not let our political sides matter. There's a reason why I do not have Republican on my signs that are out, because I want people to learn who I am as a person. I am not a party. I am affiliated with a party. I am a hardworking mom who wants to do better by my community. And so we have to not look at that and be able to come together and have conversations. In a public school, you don't get to choose who comes to your school. You get every single kid, and they all come from varying backgrounds. You don't ask them what their political party is to their parents. You know why? You show up because you want to do good by them no matter what. And And our hardest people to work with need to be the ones that we're sitting down with the most. And so we need to get away from the political, the divide that we have, and be more down the middle, more bipartisan. And that is why I'm running, because we need to be able to do that. We need to have the conversations, and we need to see each other as humans, as people who live here in District 20 and are residents of Delaware.
Thank you.
I love this community, I always have, and I believe in the promise of what this community can be. The thing that I've always loved about Delaware, and specifically about Sussex County, is folks always say, you know, there's 1 degree of separation. I've always said there's half a degree of separation. You know most folks, right? And what makes that the case is that Delaware is a state of neighbors. And that's what's been guiding me through this campaign. That notion that we're a state of neighbors. I can drive, you know, home, and I can drive down my road, and I'll, you know, see signs for me and see signs for my opponent, but at the end of the day after the election, those signs are gonna come up, and we're all just gonna be neighbors. And this job of being a legislator in Dover is that my job would be on behalf of everyone. It doesn't matter what sign goes in your yard. It doesn't matter that we might disagree on a particular topic. The job of a legislator is to be a voice on behalf of the district. And that's what I'm excited to do on behalf of District 20, because we are a place of neighbors. And I believe in the hope of that for this community. I know that even if nationally there's divide happening, that Delaware can be a leader in this space. We can show the rest of the nation what it means to be a state of neighbors. Thank you.
Early care and education is one of the most important topics for families. Families share that they are struggling with cost. What are your solutions for every child to have access?
Yeah, thank you for the question. As I shared in my opening, I'm living this experience right now. For most families, sending a child to an early education program is the cost of a mortgage. Sending 2 children to an early education program is 2 mortgages. That is not okay. That should not be the case. The single most indicator for how our K-12 systems are doing is how kids enter when they enter into our system. And the indicator that affects that the most is if children have access to an early learning education program. So one of the challenges in our district, in Sussex County as a whole, is that we have a lack of seats. There aren't enough seats for the amount of children in the age group of 0 to 5 in this community. It becomes even more complicated when you talk about infant seats. And I have an infant at home. It is nearly impossible to find care for infants in our community. So again, families are stuck trying to figure out, how do we make this work? Does one parent stay home? Does someone go part-time? I've been at the table. I've had to have those conversations. And it's my hope that we can make policy that makes it that people don't have to have those conversations anymore. That you can continue in your career and you can have a family. Because again, that's what makes this community a great community to be in, a one where people want to be able to raise their families. And in order to do that, we have to think about the budget. Most of our early child care seats, if they're not paid for by the individual, come through Medicaid and Medicare. If those cuts happen, there won't be any opportunities and supports for families who can't afford it, for families living below the poverty line. I'm ready to come and get to work on early childhood education.
Thank you. So when I reflect on how I was able to become first-generation college student, I think back to the things that my parents had to sacrifice in order for my mom to be able to stay home with my sister and I until I'm the youngest, until I went to kindergarten. So we didn't grow up, I didn't grow up in a rich household, but we never I never knew that. I just knew that I had family that loved me. My mom was there to be able to teach me, to prepare me to be able to go to school. Not all families are able to provide that. Early access to education is the way that we're able to move the dial and get our students to be able to read before third grade. That's what we really need. We know that they have to be proficient in reading in third grade, but we need to get them there sooner. And our most at-risk families are the ones that we need to be putting that money into. The Cape Henlopen School District has the consortium, which is a wonderful program that represents for all of Sussex County School for Autism. Within that school, right there on Sweetbriar Road, that was funded completely by state funds, that did not come from our funding here, it was state funded, that beautiful school. Within that is something called Little Vikings. Little Vikings is a program that should and can be replicated across the entire state, where you have students who have learning disabilities. Not everyone in Little Vikings is autistic. They have a variety of learning disabilities, and that's where you get that early intervention. And then you pair them with typical peers. They are community members who live in District 20. It's a lot of staff members who are typical peers. But the thing is that our youngest students are learning more than just how to read, how to be prepared for school. They're learning a skill, empathy. They're learning how to sit and connect with a student who has disabilities. And guess what? That makes them even better as they get older, because they have that. And so we need to take the things that Cape is doing right here and make it bigger, better, and across the county. Thank you.
Where do you stand on banning books in our school systems?
That is an interesting question. Banning books, that is challenging because every single person comes in with their own perspective, background, and then their own values. We really have to think about, just like a student teaching them acceptable use on their cell phone. We're not getting rid of cell phones, they have the access. If students have access to books, that means that they're inquisitive and they want to learn. And so it is our job to provide a variety of experiences for students and ensure that they have access to books. And if a parent doesn't want a student to read a particular book, those conversations should also be happening in the home. It shouldn't be up to just the schools to make every decision. Where are we when parents are teaching their kids about financial literacy, having conversations about difficult things? It shouldn't just be about the schools, and we need to give access to books and allow people the opportunity to choose for themselves and their families what kids are reading in their homes.
I believe that students should have access to books and literature that reflect who they are as individuals. And the way that our school system works is many of those decisions happen at the school board level for folks that make decisions around what is the reading material that is in our schools. I believe that our students, it's a part of their right to be able to know and read books of people that look like them, have experiences similar to them, and understand what that means, and that's how students begin to develop identity. I also believe that teachers and principals within their schools should have flexibility to think about what makes the most sense and is best for their curriculum. When I was a teacher, anytime before we started a book, we would send something home to parents and let them know, here's the book we're going to be reading. Here's what this book is about. If you have any concerns, please call me. I think methods like that both give parents the right and the choice to provide their feedback while still allowing students to have the opportunity to engage in texts that will push their minds and their thinking and allow them to be able to grow.
Thank you. Ms. Berry. Good, right? Okay. Development, home building, and infrastructure, such as roads, are not aligned. What will you do if elected to better ensure home and road building are aligned?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one of the questions, again, that as I've been talking to constituents throughout this campaign, has come up time and time again. Sussex County and District 20 has been playing catch up for a really long time. Many of the buildings and the developments that are going up right now have been approved 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They weren't approved with roads in mind, they weren't approved with our healthcare system in mind, they weren't approved with our K-12 system in mind. So we have to be able to bring folks to the table to talk about how do we align those things as we're continuing to grow. The thing that I've heard time and time again as I've knocked on doors from folks is, I came to this community and I fell in love. I think that that's wonderful. People should continue to come here and they should continue to fall in love with this community, but we have to do it in a way that's safe. It shouldn't put my life or my child's life in jeopardy when we're going to the store. It shouldn't mean that our schools don't have the funding and the teachers and the supports that they need for their students. It shouldn't mean that I have to wait 6, 8 months to a year to get a medical test. And so that's going to require both conversations with our county. It's going to require conversations with our towns and municipalities. It's going to require conversations with DelDOT and ZenRec to be able to bring folks to the table and talk about how we build a system that works better for this community, that works better for the folks that are already living here, so that we can continue to feel safe, we can continue to access the things that we care about, and we can continue to grow as a community.
Some of this work I've actually already been doing, even though I'm not elected. Over the past year, I have gone to many DelDOT forums and meetings to be able to not only give input, but most importantly, to learn. Because if you don't go, then you don't know. And then you're driving down the road and you're like, what? Wait, there's another circle, what's happening? And so I've tried to make sure that I'm involved. Sorry, I know the circle thing. But so DelDOT meetings, going to them and being vocal. One example that I've used recently is I was at a DelDOT meeting where they were talking about the circles they were going to put on Kings Highway. And I'm standing there talking to the gentleman who was very nice, and I asked him, I said, so tell me more, what's it going to look like at the beginning of the day and the end of the day when the buses leave? He goes, oh, that's fine, they go out the back, they go on Savannah Road. I was like, no, they don't. Yeah, they do. No, sir, they don't. I can tell you because I stood at that front door for 8 years and watched dismissal and arrival every single day. And I know that 40 buses go out the front and the rest go out the back. And in the afternoon, there is no cop on Kings Highway because, quite frankly, we can't afford to have 2 SROs in the building. So we have to split, and then he comes up there. So little things like that, having conversations with small business owners when there's construction and when it cuts off the access for them to be able to get the customers. These are the things that matter to our community. And so I've already started to do the work, but I want to continue it. Working with county council. We haven't had the conversations because we haven't had representation. And so being a part of that, being visible, watching the county council meetings on Tuesdays when they're streamed live, being in the know and not just saying, oh, that's not my job, that's the council. Oh, that's planning and zoning. No, when you take this seat, you take on all of the responsibility, and I'm ready to do that.
Okay, this question pertains to affordable housing. The cost of a home is rising, making it hard for first-time buyers to afford a home. What do you plan to do about the price to buy a home? What do you say to young people who want to stay here but think they'll never afford a home?
That is one of the things that keeps me up at night, is thinking about where is my son going to live, because I love him, but eventually I want him to get his own house. And so at 18 years old, into the electrical trade currently, I want him to be able to afford a home. I live in a very modest neighborhood, but even in my neighborhood, yeah, I can sell my house for $200,000 more than I bought it for 6 years ago, excuse me. But I can't afford to live anywhere else. So what are we going to do? We're looking at mixed housing, so adding more townhomes, more condos, that sort of thing, for young families to be able to move. As principal of the high school, people would say to me, oh, it's Cape, you're fine, it's just retirees moving here. No, actually, Cape Henlopen High School is the fastest growing of all of the schools, because if you think about it, when you're a young family, and if you're not from here, you don't have family connections, you can't just start up and move here. You have to wait until you're more established in your career, until you have the money to be able to move where you want to go. And so oftentimes we see that with the parents or the kids who are going into high school and they're like, okay, I've been in my job for 15, 20 years. We're to a point where we can do this. I want my son to be able to live where he grew up, where he loves, where his friends are, his family is. And so we have to do better by our people. We have to ensure that we have housing, because how else are we going to have doctors and nurses and teachers who move here if they don't have anywhere to live, when we have very large, beautiful homes where people live in them for maybe 1 month out of the year, 2 months out of the year. We have to think about not just the people who come here to visit and to live on their vacation home, but the people who have lived here their entire life, and how we can continue to do that so that we can continue to be neighbors. We can continue to know one another. We have to have somewhere to live.
This is one of the key issues of this district. And I've had the opportunity in my time in the governor's office to sit at the table and try to figure this out. There's something in the housing world called the missing middle. Here in Sussex County, we have lots of single-family homes. And people who live in this community are being outpriced of those homes. We want to be able to live and work in the community that we enjoy. And so one of the methods in order to do that is to build housing, the missing middle housing. And to Dr. Miller's point, that's housing around townhouses, that's apartments, that's housing that allows folks who are working to be able to live in those homes. But that's going to require, again, building a coalition to work across the aisle. We already have developers who already have plans in place. Remember, I said earlier, the developments we're seeing now were approved 5 and 10 years ago. So again, we're already starting from behind. We have to be able to go to those developers and say, hey, if you're going to build that, can you also build multi-unit housing so that the folks who live next door can afford to live there too? It's going to take that kind of negotiation and understanding to be able to meet the need now. We can't afford to wait another 10 years to build housing that people can afford to live in. Our system can't afford for our nurses and our doctors not to live within the distance that they need to work in the hospitals. Our system can't afford for our teachers to have to drive 45 minutes and an hour to get to work because they can't afford to live here. We have the ability to fix this now. It just requires some conversations and being able to sit people at the table to talk about what the needs are of this community and how we get there.
Thank you. What legislative measures would you propose to address recidivism in District 20? And what experience qualifies you to lead on this issue?
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently, I've had a ton of experience in the legal world and the criminal and social justice world. Recidivism impacts District 20 directly because we have a part of our prison system right outside of the district in Georgetown. And so when folks are re-entering into society, particularly in a rural community, it's really hard for them to be able to reacclimate into society because you can't get around here without a car. It's very hard to find a job if you don't have the transportation. You can't get to the doctor and the other places that you need to be. And so being able to work with community programs and nonprofits that have been doing this work for a long time and be able to expand some of those programs, because ultimately we want to live in a safe community where everyone is valued. And being able to reduce the amount of recidivism, which is when folks are re-committing crimes and ending up back in our system, is important. We want to make sure that folks are staying in the community and are giving back to the community and are able to become folks who are working and contributing here. And so there were several pieces of legislation this past session around prison reform, around probation and parole reform that reduces the amount of technical violations, or how we define technical violations to make sure that folks have the supports that they need to stay and be contributing members of our society. So my work, both in my everyday job as the Executive Director of the Delaware Center for Justice, but also my work in understanding what the complications of our rural community make me excited about this work moving forward.
I don't think anyone gets out of the prison system and says to themselves, I want to go back. So how can we do a better job of connecting people, not just telling them about the resources, but actually connecting them to them, bringing the resources to the individuals, ensuring that they have work. I would say to my teenagers in school, you know, if you stay busy, you stay out of trouble. If we can keep those who have re-entered in with not just the resources of financial or transportation, but the support of a mentor, of having supportive people around them, ensuring that they have a safe place to be able to stay, that they're surrounded by people who are making good choices. Those are some of the key pieces that we can do. But we also need to ensure that we're holding people accountable for the things that they do. If you do something that is not something that should be done, we have to hold you accountable. However, when you do come out, and we want to be able to support you to build you up. And so ensuring that those resources are not just told to, and that they are brought to the individuals. And I would say a huge thing is also education. Many people who are in the system are lacking education and lacking the resources, lacking the family support. So how can we as a community surround people to help them do better so that way they can be productive citizens? Okay. Next. This is what we're doing. I'm just going to sit down every time. Okay.
Delaware has the opportunity to codify maternal health in the Constitution by protecting women's right to choose. Would you support that?
I absolutely would support that. I believe that women deserve and should be making the decisions for their own health, and that with alongside their doctor. I believe that the doctor has a lot of education and is an expert. I don't go to my hairdresser and tell her how to cut my hair. I can show her a picture of what I want it to look like because she's the expert. And the same thing is for our doctors. Women deserve to be able to make choices for their bodies, for their families, and that is up to them alongside other medical professionals.
I agree with Dr. Miller. When the changes came down from the federal government, I was on a call the next day with the Department of Health and Social Services and several of our legislators trying to figure out how do we make sure that those protections are safe here in Delaware? How do we make sure that folks who need medical care are able to get the care that they need? Because women's health care and reproductive care is health care. I'm a mother who just had a baby 2 months ago. I can tell you the dangers that come with birthing, with maternal health. I can tell you how scary it can be for families. I had the opportunity to sit on the Healthy Mothers Infant Consortium in our state. And Delaware has been for years trying to make sure that we're protecting our families and health outcomes in our state. And time again, women are faced with the challenges of figuring out how to take care of themselves. Our healthcare system, not everyone is afforded the opportunity to be able to have preventative care. And having our Medicaid and Medicare system helps to make sure that people who need the health care, that need that preventative care, are able to have that. And so not only will I continue the work that I've already started in making sure that we can protect that, but I'll also make sure that we're protecting health care in our budget to make sure that when federal cuts come and when folks don't have access to those things anymore, that they're still able to get that preventative care that they need, because that saves lives when it comes to women and health care in our state.
Thank you. Question. Michigan is considering all Michigan is considering Michigan is considering requiring all law enforcement personnel to be identifiable while on the job and cannot wear a mask. Would you support a similar law in Delaware?
Yeah, thanks for the question. My answer is simply yes. I don't know any other job where you don't have to have some sort of identification. If you go into schools, you wear a badge. People know that you work there. If you go into a state building, you wear a badge. People know that you work there. If you work in the chicken plants, you wear a badge so that people can identify who you are. We live in a time where it's not safe to do everyday things. We've all seen it. It's on the news almost every day. And so yes, it is important that people can identify themselves and who they are so that people can feel safe in their own communities. It was just a month ago that off of my road, someone was robbed by someone pretending to be someone else. And that is a result of folks not having to identify themselves. That didn't make me feel safe. That didn't make me, when I tucked my kids in that night, that didn't make us feel better. So absolutely yes, that should be a requirement just as it is in every other field that I've ever experienced.
Yes, I would support that wholeheartedly. I agree that they would need to have identification. As a female, I would be lying if I told you that when I'm walking by myself, leaving a store at night or even during the day, that I'm not 100% aware of my surroundings, because you just don't know. And you don't know who people are or what they're capable of. And that goes for everyone. And so when you have a badge, when you identify yourself, as a police officer, we hope that we're in good hands, right? But that is important. Ms. Berry mentioned about the robbery that happened. That's scary. We have a lot of back roads here with no shoulder to pull over on. So, and yet we're good people. We see lights and we do what we're supposed to do, right? We pull over. But then you think to yourself, and it's like, oh, well, they say if you don't feel safe, you indicate, put your four ways on and you get somewhere that it is. But then there's that also voice in your head will say, well, that's a police officer. I'm supposed to do what they tell me to do because I don't want to get in trouble and I don't want to make other problems. So absolutely we should need to have identification. And it's important that not only is identification worn, but that it's presented in when pulled over or when addressed so that people feel safe. We have to feel safe in our environments all around, whether it's on a road or whether it's in a parking lot. So we should absolutely have identification.
Mental health support services in Sussex County can be hard to find. What programs do you support to bring mental health or counseling services to Sussex County children?
This is huge, right? There's so many different organizations, Morgan's Message, Sean Locke's up in UD that's been brought down here. We have to recognize that mental health in adolescence is a huge problem with high suicide rates. We need technology always at their fingertips. One program that I've seen that's been working really well is remote therapy, and that is a way for students that they can have whatever sessions they need from their therapist, but not have to leave the school. They can actually have a pass, they go into an office area or empty classroom, and they have a remote therapist. One thing that I love about this, mentioning the fact that we're all 1 degree from separation here, this gives students a sense of security that the things that they're telling their mental health provider is going to stay with that person and not with their uncle that they also know, or the relative or their neighbor down the road. I would say myself, that's something that of course, I would want to feel safe and secure in saying that. We could call HIPAA laws, but people still talk. And so this is a way to be able to do that. We also can bring access through wellness centers that are in schools. We have wellness centers here at Cape Hill Open High School. I've seen recently Seaford has opened a wellness center in one of our elementary schools, and we're bringing one to the middle school. It's about bringing access and opportunity to kids where they are. Many of them can't drive. Sometimes their parents may not be comfortable with them going to see somebody during a school day and missing out time. Our parents might work in the evenings, so we have to be able to think about flexible ways to give students the mental health support that they desperately need.
I personally know this is one of the most critical issues facing our state and our broader society. I had the opportunity in 2019 to work with the governor's office around actualizing an executive order 24 to make Delaware a trauma-informed state. That was a direct response to a 2017 survey that talked about the amount of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, that our Delawareans have in our state. I can tell you firsthand that we do not have enough providers in the state, and that becomes even more true the further south you go, as you come into this district. I can tell you firsthand that we don't have enough programs in our partnering with our higher education institutions to provide the amount of providers that we need in our state, and in particular in Sussex County. From 2020 to 2023, Sussex County's population grew by 26,000. There's no way we're going to be able to keep up with that if we don't have a strategy for how to do that. And so I think it requires a strategy both that takes into account some of the legislation that's been passed previously around ensuring that there are mental health providers and licensed clinical social workers in our schools, but we have to make sure that when we're passing legislation that it's funded. One of the biggest hurdles with those pieces of legislation in middle schools and in high schools and now expanding into elementary schools is that it was unfunded to start. And so we've got to make sure that when we have good ideas and we're making an impact in the community, that we're also making sure that we fund it. We need to expand our licensed clinical social work programs in our state. There's a program at Delaware State University. There's an emerging program at the University of Delaware. There's nothing for folks who live in this community to be able to get that licensure.
Thank you. What is your stance on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and why?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Part of my policy portfolio when I was in the governor's office was equity. It was around thinking about ways in which we ensure that folks have what they need, both in our school systems, in our communities, as business owners. I think that that's critical, that we do that work, that we make sure that no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, that you're able to access the same things in our state and in our community and here in District 20. And so my views on diversity, equity, inclusion, and I always like to add the A, which is access, because that includes folks with disabilities and making sure that when you come into a building, it's handicap accessible. When you go to a restaurant, that there's an elevator so that folks can get to where they go. And so making sure that we have these pieces is critical, and having a government, folks in the legislature who are focused on and tracking how we do that is important. You can mandate something or you can talk about something, but if there's no one there looking at the data, if there's no one there tracking to see, are we actually doing the thing we said we were going to do? And in my experience, that's been the value of legislators and our state officials who are focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's about asking and access. It's about asking the questions. Are we making sure that we're providing that for every population of people? Are we making sure that we're providing that for every age range of folks in our state? Are we making sure that people have what they need, no matter what point they are in their life? And so I fully support that we continue doing that work in our state. It's critical. It's the way that we make sure that we're protecting and caring for one another.
The differences that we all bring to the table is what makes us great. We are a country of immigrants. And that's why we're a world power, because we are mixed. We have everybody, and we include everybody, and we need to continue to do so. I know that I keep going back to my background in public education, but I've said it before, you don't get to pick who comes into your building. You know what you do? You love every single kid who comes into a building. You know what I will do with leading District 20? I will advocate and support every single person. I don't care who you love or what you like to do in your free time. I see you as a person, and I do support DEI because I believe that diversity is what makes us a better place. And when we can have conversations, and instead of pushing away people because they are different, instead embracing them so that way you can learn from them. How is it that you think that way? Tell me more. And if we have more people who are more inclusive and understanding and supporting, we would be in a lot better situation. We wouldn't have that divide that we have. We have to be able to work with all people. And so I use a school example, another school example is if you have a student who needs a separate bathroom, or you know what you do? You sit down with the family and you have a conversation. What would make you feel like you belong? Every single person, we're individuals for that reason. We're all different, and we have to be able to meet people where they are, have the conversation, and support them, because we need to love everybody, and we would be in a much better place.
Thank you.
I think we're moving
We
to.
have time for one more question? No? Okay. As we said earlier, there was a possibility that all questions could not be asked due to time constraints. What we ask is that you get to the candidates and with your questions so that you can get responses to them. We are at the closing now, and what will happen is the candidates will have 3 minutes to close. Ms. Berry will first, so Dr. Miller will go first.
I close it. She goes first.
Okay. Okay. So.
Well, first I just want to say thank you for everyone who came out tonight. It's not lost on me that it's raining and that you all came because you care about this community. And again, we might have different opinions around how we get things done, but what I want each of us to take with us as we leave tonight is that we all care about this community. The thing that I've learned throughout my career is that at the core, particularly when we talk about education, I've never met a person that doesn't care about kids, right? We might have different opinions on how we get there, what's the best approach that we take, but at the end of the day, we know that we're aligned and we care about kids. I'm running because I know that this community, that we're a community of neighbors. I'm running because I know that you care about this community just as much as I do. I know that on day one, that it doesn't matter what signs you had, that I'm gonna show up to be there and represent you. What I've learned from my experience in the governor's office, in education, doing policy work, is that this job is about looking and reviewing the policies that come across your desk. And it doesn't matter if you have a background in housing, it doesn't matter if you have a background in labor or business, it doesn't matter if you have a background in education. The job of a legislator is to read every single policy that comes across your desk. And if you don't know, then you have to be able to inform yourself. You have to be able to go to constituents and learn about that policy and understand what that means. You have to be able to go back to the people of this district and hear their perspective. Because that's the job, to vote on behalf of what this district is, in this district's best interest. And so that's what I'm willing to do. That's what I've done at every point in my career. No matter where I've been, it's been about listening first. Understanding what the needs are and being able to bring that to the table and advocate on behalf of this district. I'll end by saying what I've seen in my experience in Legislative Hall is that a good idea is just a good idea. If you don't have budget, if you don't have consensus, if you haven't talked to the governor, it won't go anywhere. People have great ideas all the time, but this work is about getting the job done. This work is about getting the job done on behalf of this district. I have the experience and the knowledge to do that for each of you. And I'm willing on day one to sit down with you, whether we've talked before or not, to make sure that your voice is heard in Dover.
also start and say thank you. Thank you to Ms. Berry for being here tonight and for stepping out. Because this is hard work to put yourself out there for everybody to evaluate everything that you say, do, and hear. So I understand you've been doing this for about a year. And Dr. Saunders, for your time doing the moderation this evening. Thank you, you did a wonderful job. And all of you for being here tonight. So my career has been very thoughtful. And the reason that I left being a principal, which I loved so very much, into the role that I have now was because I wanted to be a superintendent. I wanted to have an impact on an entire district. I'm an expert, I consider myself an expert in secondary education, but I needed to understand the foundational learning that happens in the K to 5. That I was missing that. And to be a good superintendent, I wanted to make sure that I could do that. So I had the opportunity to go back to where I taught and taught for 10 years an instructional coach in the Seaford School District, where there's a lot of students who are at risk. I love working with at-risk populations. That is where my heart is. It fulfills me. When I got this opportunity to run for this, I put the superintendent on the back burner because I thought to myself, here's the opportunity to not just have an impact on one district. Here's the opportunity to have an impact on the entire state. And that is what I want to do. I want to be a voice for not just District 20, but for everyone, but especially for District 20. I call myself tiny but tenacious. You hear me when I'm walking down the hall, you know when I'm coming, but you also know when I want something done. My son would probably tell you that I'm annoyingly consistent, but my students appreciate it because I held a tight line, they knew the expectations, and I held them accountable. I will do that for myself when elected. I will be visible. I will vote, not just, we heard some of my opinions, some of my stances here tonight. Guess what? At the end of the day, how I feel isn't what I'm going to be voting for. I'm not going to be told what to vote from other people in Dover. I'm going to vote from you. I would have voted against House Bill 350. Our hospitals, BB and Bay Health, they need to be making the financial decisions that is best for them. Wilmington should not have a board that tells us what we need. We know what we need. We've hired the professionals to do that. I would have voted against that. I will stand behind our kids, our families, our community members, and vote for what you want. No one else is going to tell me what to do. I'm going to advocate for you. And I will be available, and I will continue to be approachable and responsive, and thank you very much.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters, Sussex County, Delaware, a sincere and genuine thank you to our candidates and all who attended this forum this evening. I invite you to log on to vote411.org, where the candidates have responded to questions posed by the League. The source will provide you with additional information about the candidates. We request that you complete the form evaluation available from our League volunteers. It's being given out now. However you choose, we urge you to vote, as it is your right and responsibility, remembering that democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you and good evening.